r/AmItheAsshole for exposing my parents' affair to their boss after betrayal. AITA for exposing my parents' affair to their boss after betrayal. I'm sitting in my dorm room staring at the message sent confirmation on my laptop screen, and I can't decide if I'm the biggest asshole on the planet or if I just delivered some long overdue karma. 3 hours ago, I anonymously emailed detailed evidence of my parents' affairs to their HR department. Both of their affairs. With coworkers. At the same company. Yeah, it's as messy as it sounds. Let me back up. I'm 19, sophomore at State College, and up until 2 weeks ago, I thought my biggest problem was organic chemistry. My parents, both 45, work at the same mid-sized tech firm, dad's in accounting, mom's in marketing. They've been there for over a decade, which is important because this company has a zero-tolerance policy for workplace relationships between employees. I know this because they used to joke about it at dinner, talking about how ridiculous it was that consenting adults couldn't date. Turns out they found a loophole, just cheat on your spouse instead. I discovered mom's affair first, completely by accident. I was home 2 weekends ago doing laundry, because college laundry costs are highway robbery, when her phone kept buzzing on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up with messages from Jake M. with heart emojis, talking about missing her in some hotel they went to. At first I thought it was spam or a wrong number, until I saw her response about how amazing last night was and how she couldn't wait to feel his hands on her again. I felt sick. But then I got curious in that horrible way you can't stop yourself from investigating a car crash. I started paying attention. Dad was coming home late constantly, always working on quarterly reports. Mom had suddenly developed a passion for after-work yoga classes. They barely spoke to each other anymore, but I'd attributed that to normal married couple stuff. Wednesday night, I saw Dad's phone light up with messages from Christina Redhart while he was in the bathroom. Same type of messages. Same disgusting lovey-dovey affair nonsense, but from someone different. My parents were both cheating. With different people. From the same workplace. The betrayal felt surreal, but I told myself maybe this was just marriage stuff I didn't understand. Maybe they'd figure it out. I decided to focus on school and stay out of it. Then came the tuition conversation that changed everything. Since I was little, my parents promised they'd help with college costs. Not pay for everything, but contribute significantly. I've been busting my ass maintaining a 3.7 GPA while working part-time at the campus bookstore, and I still need help covering next semester's expenses. My financial aid doesn't cover everything, and I was counting on their support like they'd always promised. I sat them down last Sunday and explained my situation. I had the numbers ready, showed them exactly what I needed, reminded them of their previous commitments. Dad barely looked up from his phone. Mom just shrugged. We can't help right now, Mom said. Money's tight. You'll have to figure it out yourself. Money's tight. While Dad bought Christina a $300 necklace, I saw him hiding in his car. While Mom spent last weekend at some fancy resort with Jake, posting photos on Instagram that she quickly deleted but not before I screenshotted them. I pressed them about their promise. They got annoyed. You're an adult now, Dad said. Adults handle their own responsibilities. This from the man whose responsibility apparently includes afternoon hotel visits with his coworker. That's when I started gathering evidence. I spent the next 3 days turning into someone I didn't recognize, a private investigator fueled by rage and betrayal. I started screenshotting everything I could find, cross-referencing social media posts, and piecing together a timeline that made me want to throw up. Mom and Jake from IT had been at it for at least 4 months. Her yoga classes lined up perfectly with his Instagram posts from various bars and restaurants around town. The hotel receipts I found crumpled in her purse when she asked me to grab her keys. Same dates as Jake's tagged locations at the Marriott downtown. Dad and Christina from his department were even sloppier. They'd been having their affair for 6 months, maybe longer. I found credit card statements showing payments to the same florist every 2 weeks, definitely not buying flowers for Mom, since our kitchen table hadn't seen fresh flowers since 2019. Christina's Facebook had photos of mysterious bouquets with captions like, "Someone special spoils me Red Heart," posted the same days as Dad's flower purchases. The most damning evidence came from Dad's work laptop, which he'd left open on the kitchen table Tuesday night. I'm not proud of what I did, but I copied dozens of flirty emails between him and Christina sent during work hours, using company email addresses. Professional correspondence mixed with messages about meeting in supply closets and planning weekend getaways. But here's what really destroyed me, I found a group chat between Mom, Dad, Jake, and Christina. They all knew about each other. This wasn't 2 separate affairs happening in the same household. This was some twisted, coordinated thing where all 4 of them were joking about their situation. Messages about double dates, shared hotel rooms, even discussions about eventually leaving their spouses to swap partners officially. My parents weren't just cheating on each other, they were doing it together, with full knowledge and cooperation. They'd turned their marriage into some sick game while telling me they couldn't afford to help with college. The group chat had photos too. Expensive dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford even with my employee discount. Weekend trips to ski resorts and beach houses. Jake had bought Mom diamond earrings. Christina was wearing a designer watch Dad definitely couldn't afford on his salary, except apparently he could afford it, just not for his own family. Friday night, I found the final straw, a spreadsheet on Dad's laptop titled Fun Budget 2024. It detailed every penny they'd spent on their affairs. Hotel rooms, gifts, dinners, weekend trips, new clothes for their special occasions. The total? $23,847. I needed $4,200 for next semester's tuition. They'd spent nearly 6 times my tuition request on their cheating expenses, then looked me in the eye and said money was too tight to help their only child stay in college. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, thinking about how they'd raised me to value honesty, integrity, hard work. How they'd punished me as a kid for lying about stupid things like whether I'd brushed my teeth. How they'd lectured me about responsibility and keeping promises. Saturday morning, I made my decision. I created an anonymous email account and spent hours organizing everything into a comprehensive folder. Screenshots of the group chat. Copies of the work emails. Photos of receipts and credit card statements. Social media evidence with timestamps. I even included a detailed timeline showing how their affairs violated company policy on multiple levels. The company handbook was very clear. Employees engaged in romantic or sexual relationships with other employees may face disciplinary action up to and including termination. I wrote a professional, factual email explaining that I was reporting policy violations by 4 employees, attached my evidence folder, and sent it to both HR and their direct supervisors. Now I'm sitting here, wondering if I just destroyed my family or finally held them accountable for destroying it themselves. The aftermath started faster than I expected. Monday morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with missed calls from both parents. 23 from mom, 15 from dad, all between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. My stomach dropped. They were supposed to be at work by now. I let it ring. Then came the texts. Mom, emergency at work. Coming home. We need to talk. Dad, someone reported us to HR. Did you know about this? My hands were shaking as I read them. Part of me felt vindicated, they were finally facing consequences. But another part felt terrified about what I'd unleashed. I heard their cars pull into the driveway within minutes of each other around 10 a.m. Through my bedroom window, I watched them get out, looking like they'd aged 10 years overnight. Mom's usually perfect hair was disheveled, and Dad kept running his hands over his face. They didn't come upstairs immediately. Instead, I heard hushed, frantic conversations in the kitchen. Words like investigation and suspended drifted up through the vents. My chest tightened. Suspended meant they knew HR was taking this seriously. Around noon, Mom knocked on my door. Sweetie. Can you come downstairs? We need to ask you something. I found them sitting at the kitchen table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed. Dad looked like he hadn't slept. Did you know about our situations? Mom asked carefully. I kept my face neutral. What situations? Someone sent detailed information to our company about private matters, Dad said. Very detailed. Information that would require intimate knowledge of our personal lives. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. What kind of information? They exchanged glances. Mom pulled out her phone and showed me an email from HR. They have screenshots of text messages, credit card records, even photos from social media. Whoever did this spent considerable time documenting everything. The email was clinical and terrifying. HR was launching a comprehensive investigation into policy violations and potential misuse of company resources. All 4 of them were suspended pending review. They had 48 hours to provide their side of the story before the company made final determinations regarding continued employment. We're trying to figure out who could have accessed this information, Dad said. The financial records, the personal messages, it had to be someone with access to our private accounts. They were looking at me expectantly. I realized with growing horror that I was their prime suspect. You think I did this? I asked, trying to sound incredulous rather than panicked. We're not accusing anyone, Mom said quickly. But you've been upset about the tuition situation. You had access to our phones, our laptops, our financial information. And you were acting strange last week, Dad added. Asking weird questions about our schedules, being more interested in our work than usual. I had been sloppy. In my fury, I hadn't considered that they might trace the evidence back to me. I can't believe you'd think I would do something like this, I said, putting hurt in my voice instead of guilt. Even if I was upset about college money, I wouldn't try to destroy your careers. But even as I said it, I could see doubt in their eyes. They knew their own child, and they knew I was smart enough to pull something like this off. Mom's phone rang. She glanced at it and went pale. It's Jake. He wants to meet. The web was unraveling faster than I'd anticipated. Jake and Christina were probably panicking too, trying to figure out damage control. Soon they'd all be comparing notes, and my parents would realize the evidence could have only come from someone with access to both households' information. Someone exactly like their betrayed child who'd been desperate enough to play detective. I was running out of time to figure out my next move. They left to meet Jake and Christina at some neutral location, probably a coffee shop where they could have their crisis meeting without risking being seen together at work. The irony wasn't lost on me that they were still trying to be discreet about their affairs after getting exposed to HR. I had maybe 2 hours before they returned, and I needed to use that time wisely. My anonymous email account felt like a ticking time bomb. If they involved lawyers or private investigators, someone might eventually trace it back to me. I deleted everything and cleared my browser history, but the damage was already done. While pacing my room, trying to figure out my next move, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Christina. We need to talk. Your parents don't know I'm contacting you. My blood ran cold. How did she get my number? More importantly, what did she want? Another message, I know what you did. Meet me at Riverside Park in 30 minutes or I tell your parents everything. My hands were shaking as I stared at the screen. Christina had figured it out. Maybe she was smarter than I'd given her credit for, or maybe she put together clues my parents had missed. Either way, she was trying to corner me before they returned from their group meeting. I grabbed my car keys. Running away wasn't an option, she clearly had evidence pointing to me. But meeting her felt like walking into a trap. Still, I needed to know what she knew and what she planned to do with that information. Riverside Park was nearly empty on a Monday afternoon. I spotted Christina sitting alone on a bench near the playground, still wearing her work clothes. She looked composed, calculating. Nothing like the bubbly woman from her Facebook photos. Sit, she said when I approached. It wasn't a request. I remained standing. What do you want? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Smart kid. I always wondered what you were like. Your dad talks about you sometimes during our meetings. The casual mention of her affair with my father made my stomach turn. Get to the point. The point is, you've created a problem for all of us. Jake and I could lose our jobs. Your parents definitely will, they've been there longer, so HR will make examples of them. She leaned back against the bench. But I don't think you thought this through completely. She was right. I'd been so focused on revenge that I hadn't considered all the consequences. See, your parents losing their jobs means no health insurance. No steady income. And definitely no possibility of them helping with your college tuition ever again. Christina's voice was eerily calm. You burned down the bridge you were hoping to rebuild. They already refused to help me. Refused, not unable. There's a difference. Now they'll actually be unable, assuming they can even keep the house. She pulled out her phone. Unless we work together to fix this situation. My pulse quickened. What are you talking about? I'm talking about you sending another anonymous email to HR. One that explains how the previous email was sent by a disgruntled employee who was recently fired, someone with a grudge against the company. You'll claim the evidence was fabricated or taken out of context. Christina's smile widened. In exchange, I'll convince your parents to reconsider your tuition situation. Everyone wins. I stared at her in disbelief. You want me to lie to cover up your affairs? I want you to fix your mistake. You wanted money for college. This is how you get it. Create doubt about the evidence, muddy the investigation, and your parents keep their jobs long enough to pay your tuition. It was blackmail disguised as negotiation. Christina had found my weakness, my guilt about the potential consequences, and was exploiting it. What happens if I refuse? Her expression hardened. Then I show your parents the phone number that's been calling their cell phones all week, asking questions about their schedules. Technology leaves trails, sweetie. Your trails. My mouth went dry. I'd been so careful with the evidence gathering, but I'd forgotten about phone records. Every time I'd called pretending to be someone else, every reconnaissance call I'd made, it was all documented somewhere. You're bluffing, I said, but my voice cracked. Christina pulled up her call log and showed me a number I recognized with sinking dread. My own cell phone. Called 3 times last Tuesday. Twice on Wednesday. Want me to play the voicemails where you're pretending to be from their insurance company asking about policyholder work schedules? I felt the trap closing around me. She had me cornered, and we both knew it. I need time to think about this, I said. You have until they get back from their little crisis meeting. About an hour. Christina stood up, smoothing her skirt. Oh, and don't even think about running to your parents first with some sob story. I've got screenshots of everything, and I'll make sure they know you've been planning this for weeks. As she walked away, I slumped onto the bench, my mind racing. This was spiraling completely out of control. I'd wanted to punish my parents for their betrayal and broken promises, but now I was being manipulated by my father's mistress into covering up the very crimes I'd exposed. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom, where are you? We're heading home soon. Need to finish our conversation. Another message, this one from Christina, remember, 1 hour. The email better be convincing. I drove home in a haze, trying to figure out my options. I could refuse Christina's demands and face the consequences of my parents discovering the truth. They'd be furious, but at least I wouldn't be helping cover up their affairs. Or I could send the fake email, cast doubt on the investigation, and potentially help the 4 of them keep their jobs, but I'd be complicit in their deception. Worse, I'd be indebted to Christina. If she could manipulate me once, what would stop her from doing it again? When I pulled into our driveway, I saw Dad's car was already there. Through the kitchen window, I could see both my parents sitting at the table with papers spread between them. They looked defeated, exhausted. Part of me felt vindicated seeing them suffer consequences for once. But a larger part, the part that still remembered being 7 years old and feeling safe when they tucked me in at night, just felt sick. I sat in my car for a moment, staring at our house. This morning, my biggest problem had been figuring out how to pay for college. Now I was caught between destroying my family's financial future or becoming an accessory to covering up affairs that had torn our family apart in the first place. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. Is this the student who sent the HR complaint? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. My blood turned to ice. Who is this? My name is David Chen. I'm a private investigator hired by the company to look into the allegations. We'd like to speak with you as soon as possible. The line went dead. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Someone at the company had figured out it was me. Christina's blackmail attempt was about to become irrelevant. There was no point in sending a fake email if investigators were already tracking down the real source. I looked up at the kitchen window again. My parents were still bent over their paperwork, probably trying to figure out legal strategies or damage control. They had no idea that their lives were about to get infinitely worse. And neither did Christina. I couldn't just sit in the car anymore. The investigator's call had changed everything, and I needed to think fast. Walking into the house felt like entering a war zone where I was about to become the primary target. Mom looked up when I entered the kitchen. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and Dad looked like he'd aged 5 years since this morning. The papers scattered across the table appeared to be printouts of company policies and what looked like legal consultation websites. There you are, Mom said, her voice strained. We need to talk about what's happening at work, and we need to figure out how this affects our family finances. The irony was suffocating. Here they were, finally ready to discuss money and family priorities, just as everything was about to explode. The investigation is moving fast, Dad said without looking at me. Whoever reported this had detailed information. Photos, dates, specific incidents. He rubbed his temples. HR isn't messing around. They've brought in outside investigators. My phone buzzed with a text from Christina, 45 minutes. Email better be sent soon or I make my calls. She had no idea that her blackmail scheme was pointless now. The investigators were already on to me. But should I tell her that, or let her dig her own grave deeper? The strangest part, Mom continued, is how thorough the evidence was. Someone had been watching us for weeks, maybe months. They knew about specific conversations, private meetings. She trailed off, and for a terrifying moment, I thought she'd figured it out. Dad's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. It's HR. We all froze as he answered. Hello. Yes, this is Richard. A long pause. What? Are you sure? Another pause, longer this time. I understand. Yes, we'll both be there first thing tomorrow morning. He hung up and looked at Mom with an expression I'd never seen before, pure panic. They want us in at 8 a.m. tomorrow for formal interviews. Individual sessions with the investigator, then together with HR. Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. They're also interviewing Jake and Christina separately. What did they say about the source of the allegations? Mom asked. They're close to identifying them. Apparently, the person made some mistakes that left a trail. My stomach dropped to my feet. David Chen, the investigator, was clearly good at his job. Richard, Mom said slowly, what if the person who reported this, what if it's someone we know? Someone who had access to our schedules, our routines. The room fell silent except for the humming of the refrigerator. I could feel both of them thinking, and I could practically see the moment suspicion began to creep in. Dad looked at me directly for the first time since I'd walked in. You've been asking a lot of questions about our work lately. About schedules, about colleagues. Dad, Where were you when we got home earlier? You disappeared right after our conversation about college. My phone buzzed again. Christina, 30 minutes. Don't test me. But now I had a horrible realization. If the investigator had already tracked me down, Christina's threat to expose my phone calls was meaningless. She was trying to blackmail me with evidence that was about to come out anyway. Unless, what if I could turn this around? What if I could use Christina's desperation against her? I need to make a phone call, I said, heading toward the stairs. Don't go anywhere, Mom said firmly. We're not done talking. But I was already halfway up the stairs, my mind racing with a new plan. If Christina wanted to play games, I'd show her what real manipulation looked like. The question was, did I have enough time to execute it before everything fell apart completely? I locked my bedroom door and immediately called the number that had just contacted me. David Chen. This is the person you're looking for, I said, my voice barely steady. The one who sent the HR complaint. I appreciate you calling back. We need to meet. Wait, I interrupted. Before we do anything, you need to know that one of the people involved is trying to blackmail me into sending a fake email to discredit the investigation. There was a pause. Explain. Christina Walsh. She figured out it was me and she's demanding I send an email claiming the evidence was fabricated, or well, it doesn't matter now since you already found me. But she doesn't know that yet. What time frame are we talking about? I checked my phone. Another text from Christina, 20 minutes. I'm not bluffing. She wants the email in 20 minutes. She thinks she can manipulate me into helping them cover this up. Interesting. Are you willing to help us document this attempted obstruction? We'd need you to record the interaction. My heart was pounding. You want me to trap her? I want to give you the opportunity to show that you're cooperating fully with our investigation. Attempting to interfere with an HR inquiry is a terminable offense, potentially even criminal depending on how far she takes it. Downstairs, I could hear my parents' voices getting more heated. Dad was on another phone call, probably with a lawyer. Mom was pacing, I could tell by the rhythm of her footsteps on the kitchen tile. What do I need to do? Can you arrange to meet her in person? Get her to repeat her demands on recording. She wants me to send an email, not meet. Text her back. Tell her you need to see the evidence she claims to have on you first. Make her prove she has what she says she has. Get her talking about the blackmail in detail. I was quiet for a moment, processing. If I do this, what happens to my parents? That depends on what our investigation finds. But I'll be honest with you, the evidence you provided was comprehensive. This isn't going away. Another text from Christina, 15 minutes. Send the damn email. Mr. Chen, if I help you with this, can you arrange for me to talk to my parents before they find out it was me? I know that's probably not protocol, but I can give you until tomorrow morning. After your recording session with Ms. Walsh, assuming she takes the bait, you'll have tonight to handle your family situation however you think is best. It wasn't much, but it was something. Okay. I'll try to get her to meet. Text me the location as soon as you set it up. And remember, we need her to clearly state that she's trying to get you to interfere with the investigation. Make her spell out the quid pro quo. I hung up and immediately texted Christina, I can't send the email without seeing what you have on me first. Meet me at the campus coffee shop in 10 minutes. I need proof before I risk everything. Her response was almost instant, fine. But you're wasting time we don't have. This better be quick. My parents' voices were getting louder downstairs. I caught fragments, whoever did this knows us personally. Access to private information. Has to be someone close. I grabbed my keys and headed for the stairs, but Mom intercepted me at the bottom. Where do you think you're going? We're in the middle of a family crisis. I just need to grab something from my car, I lied. Get it later. We need to figure out who's targeting our family. Dad hung up his call and looked at both of us. The lawyer says if they can prove the allegations, we're both finished. Not just fired, blacklisted from the industry. My phone buzzed, I'm here. Where are you? The trap was set, but I was still stuck in my own house, under increasing suspicion from parents who were getting closer to the truth with every passing minute. I have to go, I said, pushing past Mom toward the front door. There's something I need to handle right now. Absolutely not, Dad said, stepping between me and the exit. We're going to sit down and talk through everyone who might have had access to information about our schedules and work relationships. My phone buzzed again. Christina, don't keep me waiting. Every minute you waste makes this worse for you. This is important, I insisted, but Dad crossed his arms. More important than your family's livelihood. More important than figuring out who's trying to destroy us. The irony was suffocating. I was the one trying to destroy them, and now I was potentially the only one who could save them from Christina's interference with the investigation. The complexity of it made my head spin. Richard, Mom said slowly, studying my face, look at him. He's panicked about something. I'm not panicked, I just. You're sweating, she continued. And you keep checking your phone. Someone's pressuring you about something. My phone rang. Christina calling now instead of texting. I declined it immediately, but the damage was done. Who was that? Dad demanded. Nobody. Show me your phone. What? No. You can't just. If you have nothing to hide, show us your recent calls and texts. This was spiraling out of control. Christina was waiting at the coffee shop, probably getting more suspicious by the minute. David Chen was expecting me to gather evidence of her blackmail attempt. And my parents were one logical leap away from realizing their own child had torpedoed their careers. My phone buzzed with a text. Mom was close enough to see the notification preview. If you don't show up in 5 minutes, I'm calling your parents directly. The blood drained from my face. Who, Mom said with deadly calm, is threatening to call us? It's not what it looks like. Christina Walsh, Dad read over Mom's shoulder. Why would Christina Walsh be threatening to call us about you? I watched the pieces click together in their minds. Dad's affair partner was messaging me. Threatening me. Their son who had been asking suspicious questions about work schedules and colleagues. Oh my God, Mom whispered. You know about the affairs. Mom, I can explain. How long have you known? Dad's voice was eerily quiet. That's not the important part right now. How long? A few weeks, I admitted. But listen, Christina is trying to blackmail me into interfering with the HR investigation. If I don't meet her right now and record her confession, she's going to. Record her confession? Mom's voice pitched higher. Why would you be recording anything unless? The final piece clicked. You, Dad said, his face going from pale to red. You reported us. There was no point denying it anymore. Yes, but Christina figured it out and now she's trying to force me to send a fake email claiming the evidence was fabricated. The investigator wants me to trap her, but she's at the coffee shop right now waiting, and if I don't show up she's going to call you and then she'll know something's wrong. And you destroyed our lives, Mom said flatly. You destroyed your own lives. I just exposed what was already happening. Dad's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his expression darkened further. It's Christina, he said. She's calling me now. We all stared at the ringing phone. If he answered, Christina would realize I wasn't coming. If he didn't, she might get suspicious anyway. But if I could somehow salvage this situation, get to the coffee shop, record her confession. Don't answer, I said quickly. Let me handle this. I can still fix this. Fix this? Mom laughed bitterly. You think anything about this is fixable? The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. Answer it, I said desperately. Act normal. Tell her you're dealing with a family emergency and can't talk. Dad stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Act normal. You want me to lie to my... He caught himself before saying, girlfriend, in front of Mom. You want me to lie to her while she's actively trying to blackmail my son? She's trying to save both your asses. I shot back. If the investigation finds evidence that someone interfered with it, you'll face criminal charges on top of everything else. Mom grabbed Dad's arm as the phone rang again. Richard, don't answer. We need to think this through. Think what through? Dad's voice was getting louder. Our son betrayed us, and now his betrayal is spiraling into something even worse. There's nothing to think through. My own phone started buzzing with rapid-fire texts from Christina. Where the hell are you? I can see the parking lot from here. Your car isn't here. You're making a huge mistake. I'm calling your father in 30 seconds. She's going to call you again, I warned Dad. And when she does, she's going to realize something's wrong. The HR investigator said attempted interference could be criminal. Do you understand what that means? What I understand, Dad said, his voice shaking with rage, is that my son has been playing puppet master with our lives for weeks. Mom was scrolling through her own phone now. I have 17 missed calls from various colleagues. Word is already spreading through the office. Of course it is, I said. That's how these investigations work. But Christina trying to manipulate the evidence makes it worse for everyone. If I can record her. No. Dad's voice echoed through the hallway. You've done enough recording, enough investigating, enough destroying. You're done. His phone rang again. This time he answered it. Christina. Yeah, what? No, I haven't talked to. His eyes met mine, and I could see him making a choice that would doom us all. Actually, yes. I'm looking at him right now. Dad, don't. She wants to talk to you, he said, holding out the phone with a bitter smile. Your co-conspirator has some questions. I could hear Christina's voice through the speaker, sharp and angry, but couldn't make out the words. Taking the phone felt like accepting a death sentence, but not taking it might be worse. Hello, Christina. You little shit. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes while you played games. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? Mom and Dad were both staring at me, listening to every word. The recording app on my phone was useless now. Any evidence I gathered would be tainted by the fact that my parents were witnesses to the setup. I can still send the email, I said carefully. But I need. It's too late for the email. I just got a call from David Chen. He wants to meet with me in an hour. Someone told him I was involved in trying to interfere with the investigation. My blood went cold. How could he know that? That's what I'd like to know. The only people who knew about our arrangement were you and me. So either you're wearing a wire right now, or you told someone else. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's expression shifted from anger to something approaching panic. I didn't tell anyone, I lied. Then you're recording this call. I'm not. Prove it. Put the phone on speaker. Let me hear the room you're in. I looked at my parents. Dad was shaking his head slowly, like he finally understood how deep this rabbit hole went. Christina, I said, I think we need to. Speaker. Now. Or I hang up and tell Chin that Richard Martinez's son has been working with me to fabricate evidence. My finger hovered over the speaker button, knowing that whatever came next would finish destroying what was left of my family. I hit the speaker button. Christina's voice filled the hallway, sharp and commanding. Good. Now I want to hear you say, clearly, that you've been recording our conversations without my consent. I haven't been. Cut the shit. I know you met with David Chin. I know he asked you to gather evidence. What I don't know is whether you're still working with him or if you finally realize that cooperating with me is your only way out of this mess. Mom grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Dad was pacing now, running his hands through his hair like he did when quarterly reports were due. Christina, I said carefully, maybe we should discuss this in person. Oh, we're way past that. See, I just spent the last 20 minutes making some calls of my own. Turns out your little anonymous tip to HR. Not as anonymous as you thought. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean I know exactly when the complaint was filed, and I know it came from someone with detailed knowledge of both affairs. Someone who had access to photos, schedules, even credit card receipts. That's not random coworker gossip, sweetie. That's intimate family knowledge. Dad stopped pacing. Mom's grip on my arm tightened. But here's the interesting part, Christina continued, her voice taking on a sickeningly sweet tone. I also know that HR complaints create digital footprints. Email timestamps, IP addresses, all sorts of technical breadcrumbs that a smart investigator could follow. Get to the point, I said, though I was terrified to hear it. The point is that David Chen has been very thorough. And when he traces the complaint back to you, which he will, he's going to wonder why the son of 2 employees suddenly became so interested in workplace ethics. He's going to wonder if maybe you had other motivations. What other motivations? But even as I asked, I could see where this was heading. Tuition troubles, maybe? I heard your parents cut off your college funding. That's got to sting. Makes a person vindictive. Mom's face went white. How does she know about the tuition? Christina laughed through the speaker. Oh, did I not mention? Your husband tells me all sorts of things during our late-night conversations. How you two decided to prioritize your own happiness over your son's education. How he felt guilty about it but figured the kid needed to learn independence. Richard, Mom's voice was deadly quiet. What exactly did you tell her about our family? Sarah, not now. Did you tell your girlfriend that we cut off our son's tuition so we could spend money on our affairs? The question hung in the air like poison gas. Christina's laughter got louder. Oh, this is rich. You're all turning on each other. This is better than I hoped. Christina, Dad said, his voice strained, whatever game you're playing. No game, Richard. Just survival. See, I figured out something important while I was sitting in that coffee shop. If your son recorded me trying to interfere with the investigation, that makes me the villain. But if I have evidence that he filed a false complaint motivated by financial revenge, well, that changes the whole narrative. My phone started buzzing with a new call. David Chen's name appeared on the screen. Oh look, Christina said, your handler's calling. You going to answer that? Or are you finally ready to admit that we need each other? Mom was staring at the incoming call, then at me, then at Dad. Answer it, she whispered. Don't answer it, Dad said simultaneously. The phone kept ringing. Christina kept laughing. And I realized that no matter what choice I made next, someone was going to destroy me. I let Chen's call go to voicemail. The silence that followed felt like the moment before a building collapses. Smart choice, Christina said through the speaker. But he's going to call back. And when he does, you better have your story straight. What story? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. The truth. That you filed that HR complaint because you were angry about the tuition money. That you never had any real evidence of policy violations, just family gossip and assumptions. Dad's face went red. That's not, we never told him details about. Richard, sweetie, you told me about the company credit card charges. You told me about the hotel receipts Sarah thought she hid so well. You told me about the weekend conferences that weren't really conferences. Your son didn't need to spy on you, he just needed to listen to his daddy's pillow talk. Mom looked like she was going to be sick. The hotel receipts. Richard, how could you? I didn't mean to give him ammunition. Dad exploded. I was venting to Christina about the guilt, about how we were being hypocrites with the college money while we were spending hundreds on. On what? Mom's voice was ice. What exactly were you spending hundreds on with her? My phone buzzed with a text from Chen, need to speak with you immediately. This situation has escalated. Christina must have heard the notification. Tick-tock. Chen's getting impatient. And impatient investigators start digging deeper. How long before he pulls the security footage from the coffee shop? How long before he realizes you've been meeting with me? Wait, Mom said, her voice sharp with realization. You've been meeting with her? When? The walls were closing in from every direction. It's complicated. No, it's not complicated, Mom snapped. It's simple. You exposed our affairs to HR, then you started working with Dad's mistress. Why? Because I thought I could fix this. Fix what? Dad demanded. Fix us. Fix your tuition. Fix the fact that your parents are human beings who made mistakes. Fix the fact that you're both liars. The words exploded out of me. You promised me college funding for 4 years. You made me turn down financial aid because you said you had it covered. Then you decided your affair partners were more important than your son's future. My phone rang again. Chen, again. Answer it, Christina commanded. And remember, if you try to implicate me in evidence tampering, I have text messages proving you approached me first. I have records of every conversation where you begged me to help you get revenge on your parents. That's not what happened. Prove it. Oh wait, you can't. Because you deleted those texts, didn't you? Just like you deleted the photos you took of your father's phone when he wasn't looking. Mom's head snapped toward me. You went through his phone. I had to. You both were lying to my face every day while we what? While we tried to find some happiness in our miserable marriage. While we worked 60-hour weeks to keep this family afloat financially, even after we couldn't afford your tuition anymore. You could afford it. You just chose not to. The phone stopped ringing. Then immediately started again. Christina's voice cut through our shouting. This is fascinating family therapy, but Chen's not going to wait much longer. And I just got a text that makes this conversation moot. What text? Dad asked. From my supervisor. Apparently, someone sent him copies of our text messages. The real ones, where your son asked me to help him frame you both for policy violations that might not have technically occurred. My blood turned to ice water. That's impossible. I never sent. Then who did? Christina asked sweetly. Who else had access to both our phones? Who else knew about our meetings? The answer hit me like a physical blow. Chen hadn't just been using me to gather evidence against my parents. He'd been gathering evidence against me. David Chen has been playing all of us, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The realization was settling in like cold concrete in my chest. He knew I'd eventually contact Christina. He's been waiting for us to dig ourselves deeper. Christina's laugh through the speaker was sharp and bitter. Oh, sweetie, you're just figuring that out now. I've been wondering when you'd catch up. Dad's phone started ringing. Mom's followed seconds later. The display on Dad's showed Chen's number. He's calling all of us, Mom said, staring at her buzzing phone like it was a snake. He wants us separated so our stories don't match. What stories? I asked frantically. We don't even know what we're being accused of anymore. Christina's voice crackled through the speaker. I do. Want to hear the charges David's about to level at your family? Conspiracy to file false HR complaints, evidence tampering, attempted coercion of witnesses, and my personal favorite, wire fraud for using company resources to conduct personal vendettas. Wire fraud? Dad's face went gray. That's a federal crime. Congratulations, you're finally understanding the stakes. See, when your son used the company Wi-Fi to access his email and send those anonymous tips, technically he was using corporate resources for non-business purposes. And when he forwarded screenshots of company credit card statements, even ones he got from your pillow talk, Richard, that becomes theft of proprietary information. My legs felt weak. I used the visitor Wi-Fi in the lobby. That's not. Actually, Christina interrupted, the visitor Wi-Fi logs are tied to the same system as employee access. Same digital fingerprint. Chen's been building this case for 3 days, honey. You think he hasn't checked every technical detail? Mom was pacing now, her phone still ringing. This is insane. Richard, tell me you understand what's happening here. Tell me you see that we're being set up. By who? Dad demanded. Chen. Christina. Our own son. By all of us. Mom exploded. By every stupid decision we've made in the last month. We created this mess. My phone buzzed with a text from Chen. If you don't answer in the next 5 minutes, I'm escalating this to legal and security. Last chance to cooperate voluntarily. 5 minutes, I read aloud. Christina's voice turned urgent. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to answer that call and tell Chen that I approached you first, trying to interfere with the investigation. You're going to say I offered to help you fabricate evidence against your parents in exchange for money. What money? I asked. The tuition money you're so desperate for. I'll play the villain who tried to manipulate a desperate college kid into committing corporate fraud. Chen gets his conspiracy, you get to be a victim instead of a perpetrator, and your parents keep their jobs. Dad was shaking his head. Christina, if you do that, you'll be arrested. Maybe. Or maybe I'll be seen as a whistleblower who uncovered a family fraud scheme. Depends on how convincing your son is. What's in it for you? Mom asked suspiciously. Survival. If I'm the mastermind who manipulated your innocent son, then the evidence tampering charges stick to me instead of him. And unlike your 19-year-old with no money for lawyers, I have resources to fight federal charges. My phone started ringing again. Chen's name filled the screen. Time's up, Christina said. What's it going to be? You can all go down together, or you can let me take the fall for the adults in the room. Dad looked at Mom. Mom looked at me. I stared at the ringing phone, knowing that whatever words came out of my mouth in the next 30 seconds would determine whether our family survived this or if we all became federal criminals. Answer it, Mom whispered. Whatever else happens, answer it. I swiped to accept the call, my hand trembling. Hello, David. I think we need to talk. Jason, Chen's voice was crisp and professional through the phone. I'm glad you finally decided to take my call. I'm here with legal and security, and we have some questions about your recent activities. My throat felt like sandpaper. What kind of questions? The kind that require you to come in immediately. We're in conference room B on the 3rd floor. You know where that is, don't you? From your visits to the building this week. Christina was frantically typing something on her phone. She held it up to show me, don't mention me yet. Wait for them to bring it up first. I can be there in 20 minutes, I said. Excellent. Oh, and Jason. Come alone. We'll be speaking with your parents separately. The line went dead. Christina immediately started packing up her laptop. Where are you going? Mom demanded. Somewhere that isn't here when they trace this call location, Christina said. They're tracking everything now. Your son's phone, your phones, probably even this coffee shop's security cameras. Dad grabbed her arm. You said you'd help. You said you'd take the fall. I said maybe. But I need to see what cards Chen's actually holding before I decide to throw myself under the bus for your family. She shrugged off his grip. Besides, if they don't bring me up in the first interview, it means they don't have solid evidence of our meetings yet. And if they do? I asked. Then we're all screwed, and my offer to play villain expires. Christina slung her bag over her shoulder. Good luck, kid. Try not to commit any more felonies in the next hour. She walked out, leaving the three of us staring at each other across the debris of our family. 20 minutes, Mom said. We need a plan. The plan is to tell the truth, Dad said. Jason exposed our affairs because he was angry about the tuition money. Everything else is just consequences. What about the evidence tampering charges Christina mentioned? I asked. What evidence tampering? Mom's voice was sharp. You didn't tamper with anything, did you? You just reported what you saw. I felt sick. I may have enhanced some of the details in the emails I sent to HR. Enhanced how? Dad's voice was deadly quiet. I made it sound like your relationship with Christina was more serious than it was. Like you were talking about leaving Mom. And I may have implied that Mom was sharing confidential client information with Derek when I didn't actually know that for sure. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Jesus Christ, Jason, Mom finally whispered. You fabricated evidence. I was angry. You both lied to me for months. So you decided to commit fraud. Dad's face was red. Do you understand what you've done? Even if they can't prove everything Christina threatened, they have you dead to rights on filing false reports. My phone buzzed with another text from Chen, 15 minutes. Don't be late. We need to call a lawyer, Mom said. With what money? Dad snapped. Our legal fund went to hotel rooms and jewelry, remember? This is not the time for. Actually, it's exactly the time, I interrupted. Because in 14 minutes, I'm going to walk into that conference room and they're going to ask me to explain why I thought destroying our family was worth my tuition money. Another buzz. This time it wasn't Chen. It was Christina, they just called me too. Chen knows about our meetings. Offer expired. You're on your own. The coffee shop suddenly felt airless. Through the window, I could see the gleaming tower where Chen was waiting, where my parents' careers were hanging by a thread, where I was about to discover if 19 years old was too young to be charged as an adult for federal crimes. 13 minutes, I said. We should run, I said suddenly. Just leave. Drive to Canada or something. Dad stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Run. Jason, this isn't a movie. You can't just flee the country because you're facing federal charges. Why not? People do it all the time. People with resources and offshore accounts, Mom said. Not a family with 2 mortgages and a kid in college. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't Chen, it was an unknown number with a local area code. Don't answer it, Dad warned. I answered anyway. Hello. Is this Jason Mitchell? The voice was crisp, professional, female. Who's asking? This is Special Agent Sarah Rodriguez with the FBI's White-Collar Crime Unit. We'd like to speak with you about some allegations involving wire fraud and corporate espionage. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered onto the table. Mom grabbed it before I could. This is Jason's mother. He's a minor. Actually, ma'am, he's 19. He's legally an adult. We can speak with him directly. Agent Rodriguez's voice carried clearly through the speaker. We understand he has a meeting with company representatives in a few minutes. We'd like to speak with him afterward. Dad leaned over the phone. Does he need a lawyer? Everyone has the right to legal representation, sir. But right now, we're just gathering information. No arrests are being made today. Today, Mom repeated. We'll be in touch, Jason. Please don't leave the metropolitan area. The line went dead. FBI, I whispered. They called in the fucking FBI. Language, Mom said automatically, then caught herself. Sorry. Habit. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Christina. New phone. Don't mention our plan. They have recordings. Recordings of what? I showed them the text. Dad's face went ashen. The coffee shop. Some of these places have audio surveillance. How would they get access to that? Mom asked. Warrant, Dad said grimly. If they're investigating federal crimes, they can get warrants for everything. Security footage, audio recordings, phone records, bank statements. Another text from Christina. Emergency meeting location changed. Park on 5th Street. 10 minutes. Come alone or we're all going to prison. She wants to meet again, I said. Absolutely not. Mom's voice was firm. You are not meeting with anyone except Chen and then a lawyer. But what if she has information that could help? What if it's a trap? Dad countered. What if she's wearing a wire now? I stared at the text. Christina had been one step ahead of everyone since this started. She knew about the investigation before we did, knew about the charges before they were filed, somehow knew about the FBI involvement before they even called me. How does she know so much? I asked. About the investigation, about what Chen's planning, about everything. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. What? I demanded. Christina's ex-husband, Mom said slowly. He works for the DA's office. She mentioned it once at the office Christmas party. So the DA's office coordinates with the FBI on white-collar crimes, Dad said. If she still has connections there. You think she's been feeding us information from inside the investigation? I asked. I think, Mom said, that Christina has been playing a much longer game than any of us realized. My phone started ringing again. Chen's name flashed on the screen. 7 minutes late, I said. Answer it, Dad said. Whatever else happens, we can't make this worse by ignoring them completely. But as I reached for the phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, this was about to get much worse. I answered the phone with shaking hands. Jason, where are you? Chen's voice was ice cold. We've been waiting. I'm coming. Traffic was. Don't. We know you're at the coffee shop on Market Street. We have security footage of you entering 30 minutes ago. We also have audio recordings of your conversation. The blood drained from my face. Audio recordings. The FBI has been very thorough. They've also informed us that Christina Reeves has been feeding you information from the DA's office through her ex-husband. Information that constitutes obstruction of justice. Dad grabbed the phone from me. This is Jason's father. We're coming in now. Actually, Mr. Mitchell, that won't be necessary. After reviewing all the evidence, and I do mean all of it, the company has decided to handle this matter internally. What does that mean? Mom whispered. Chin continued, it means that while Jason's actions were misguided and potentially criminal, they ultimately exposed serious violations of company policy and federal law. Christina Reeves has been manipulating this entire situation, using Jason as a pawn to eliminate workplace rivals while covering her own insider trading scheme. Insider trading? I choked out. She's been using information from her relationships with employees to make stock trades through shell companies. The affairs she encouraged, the information she gathered from both your parents, it was all part of a larger fraud scheme. The FBI estimates she made over $2 million in illegal profits. The coffee shop spun around me. So this was never about the affairs? Oh, the affairs were real. And they were violations of company policy. But Christina orchestrated the timing of everything to cover her tracks when she realized the SEC was closing in. Mom sank into her chair. We were played. Thoroughly. She fed Jason just enough real information to make him feel powerful, then sat back while he did her dirty work. Chen's tone softened slightly. The company is prepared to offer a settlement. What kind of settlement? Dad asked. Your parents keep their jobs, with suspensions and mandatory counseling. The affairs stop immediately, and both Christina's former partners submit to financial auditing to ensure they weren't involved in her trading scheme. In exchange, the company doesn't press charges for corporate espionage. And Jason? Mom's voice cracked. Jason cooperates fully with the FBI investigation into Christina's activities. His tuition costs will be covered by the company's educational assistance program as compensation for being manipulated by a federal criminal. I stared at the phone. You're paying for my college. Consider it hazard pay for being Christina's unwitting accomplice. The FBI wants her much more than they want a 19-year-old who got played by a professional con artist. Through the coffee shop window, I could see FBI agents escorting Christina out of a building across the street in handcuffs. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without her confident stride and knowing smirks. There is one condition, Chen added. Family therapy. All of you. The company's insurance will cover it, but it's mandatory. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. Dad put his arm around both of us. We accept, Dad said. Good. Report to work Monday morning. All of you have a lot of rebuilding to do. As we walked out of the coffee shop together, I realized that sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the most necessary changes. I'd nearly destroyed my family trying to punish them, but somehow we'd all ended up exactly where we needed to be. So, Mom said, ready to be a family again? For the first time in months, the answer was yes.